Welcome back for another Oh So Inspired video hop. Use the hashtag on the screen to find all the creators who are participating in this challenge. We also have in the description box, there's also a hashtag for you to use to help us find the projects that you create as you play along with us. I did want to mention that sometimes hashtags work and sometimes they don't. So shortly after this video airs, there will be a playlist link available in the description box over on Crafty Al's channel, and if I can get a hold of it, I will add it to my channel as well. So here's a look at our inspiration piece. The wonderful Laura Bassen was the inspired creator. For my card today, I'm going to be using the So Sweet Cherry collection, which is a beautiful stencil from Papertrey Ink. I have 4 Catherine Pooler inks in Garden Party, Lime Ricky, Party Dress, and Samba. I have added the stencil over a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch cardstock. I'm going to start with my lightest green, which is going to be Garden Party, and one of my smaller blending brushes. Definitely want to use a smaller blending brush. I chose to color at the end of each of these leaves. There is a heart, and I chose to just color the heart green. If you wanted to color the heart a different color, then I would recommend using even smaller blending brushes. I do have some that I will link in the description box below. You'll see me use them on the cherries. They just allow you to get into smaller spaces, and it would prevent you from coloring those little hearts with that green ink. I'm going to add a little bit of dimension and highlight to the bottom of each of the leaves. So I'm bringing in that second color, and there is a look at that smaller blending brush. This color is called Lime Ricky, and as I mentioned, I am bringing it in from the bottom towards the middle just to add a couple tones of color, because leaves aren't exactly one color, and also it helps define and add dimension to the project. For my cherries, I'm starting with Party Dress, which is more of a pink tone. You can see my sample piece right there on the Misty. So the one to the right is the first color that I'm using. And then I'll use another little brush, and I'm going to add just a little bit of depth of color using Samba, which is more of a red. This stencil set does come with 2 different styles of I guess it's a cherry stencil. So there's 2 different styles for this stencil. It's not a layering stencil. For my stems on the cherries, I'm adding Warm Buff from Pink Fresh Studio. I really like the simplicity of the card with from Laura Bassen. In fact, I will have all of her social media information linked in the description box below, along with a link to the project that inspired us this month. And the simplicity of it with the large letters, so just having the large sentiment on the front really taking center stage was something that obviously stood out to me. I chose to go with more of a busier background. I absolutely love this stencil. Papertrey Ink has been coming out with some fabulous stencils lately, and so this was one that I really wanted to use, and I thought it was perfect for my project today. I did use a G5 Copic marker to see, and you can see that it added even more depth to those leaves. So now my stencil is really popping on my background. And then to define the cherries a little bit more, I am using a white gel pen, going over the white space where it was naturally embedded in the stencil, and then adding just a little dot or two. And that's going to, again, just help that background stand out just a little bit more, because I am using it as the centerpiece for my card. I wanted to do an ombre effect for my letters, so I started out with the Party Dress, and I'm blending that Samba underneath. You'll notice that I'm leaving white space at the very top, and it looks kind of funky right now. But once I get these Tim Holtz stretch uppercase letters on, I will run it through my die cutting machine, and you're going to see how beautiful this ombre looks. Because they're the same colors that I used for the cherries, it really is going to work well with the design of the card. So I'm going to get these straightened out. I do end up putting a piece of tape over the top of it, and I ran it through my die cutting machine. And now I have a piece of vellum. So I want to break up the pattern underneath the letters, and I decided that I was going to use this. This is a ruler that has a deckled edge, and so I just took out a piece of vellum and I pulled it against the ruler to get a deckled edge, very fine decal. And then I added my letters to the top of it to make sure that I was getting the right height, and did it and added the ruler and pulled the paper again just to make sure that I had that same edge on both sides. For my sentiment, I always like to stack my sentiments, so I started with 2 layers of white cardstock that I glued together, and now I'm adding a 3rd layer with the ombre alphabets that I went ahead and die cut. So you can see how that ombre effect works, how nice at leaving that little bit of white space at the top of it makes the letters pop, and having them against the vellum is really going to help them pop against my background as well. So once I get these glued together, we're going to start adding our vellum to our card panel. I did end up cutting down the panel, so here is my card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. I'm going to bring in my guillotine trimmer, and I'm going to trim this down by 1/4 inch on 2 sides, so length and width, which is going to give me a finished background of 4 by 5 1/4 inches. I'm going to add some adhesive to the back of this panel, and I'm just going to wrap this vellum around the back side. I do end up trimming off the excess, and I did struggle a little bit getting this straight onto this panel, so you're going to see me mess with it just a little bit, but eventually I do get that straight on there. And once I do that, I am going to add a little bit of dimension to this background. Going back to the Oh So Inspired collaboration, I did want to talk a little bit about the fact that we really would love for you to join in on the fun. We're looking to inspire you to create using the inspiration piece that we've used, or maybe you were inspired by one of our cards and using that hashtag that's down below. I also have all of the creators who are participating in the hop. I do have their channels listed in the description box below. If you want to look at their individual channels, I would encourage you to do so because there's a lot of talent on this team. All right, so there's a look at Laura Bassen's card over on the right, and you can see my card on the left. I'm using my T-square ruler. Now, I didn't fully center the thank you, so you can see it's a little bit more towards the bottom and the top than the top, and I was fine with that. My biggest concern was making sure that I got my alphabet straight, and a T-square ruler really helps with that. I think I want to switch though to the Simon Says stamp one because it's only 6 inches, and I find that having that longer ruler sometimes impedes my work when I'm trying to get stuff done. So there I just finally gave up and thought, well, I have the T and the K aligned, so I should be able to get the rest of my letters fairly straight, and I think that I did a pretty good job of that. Getting things straight is really not one of my fortes, so I'm really glad that it worked out on this. Once I get this word on here, I am going to use a stamp set. It's another older one from Papertrey Ink. I think it's called Thinking of You. I liked that the U was a very simple font, like the font for the thank, and so I went ahead and stamped it using Lime Ricky, and then I'm going to trim it down using my paper trimmer. You certainly could add a bit of foam tape to the back of this, and maybe hindsight I would have done that, but instead I just went ahead and glued it down over the A. So knowing that the A was the center of my word, I went ahead and glued it down there, And once I get this glued down, that completes my card for today. So I want to thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up, leave a comment, and if you haven't subscribed, I would absolutely love for you to subscribe. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks for joining me.